Webmania.
Hello viewers, welcome to Webmania Bootstrap 3 19th tutorial. In this video tutorial, we will learn Bootstrap button group. Let's understand this with an example. So we want to create a button group that look like this. Here you notice there is no space between the buttons. All the buttons are merged into a single group. So let's create this. For this, let's go to our editor. So here is our editor, and at that moment if you notice we have 6 buttons: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, Bootstrap and PHP, and on these button elements we apply button classes which we discussed in our last video tutorial. So if you have no information about these button classes, you must watch my previous tutorial of button classes. So let's view this in our browser. Let's save this. Here is our browser. At the time it looks blank, and when we reload the page, here you can see 6 buttons of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, Bootstrap and PHP. If you notice, there is a small space between all these buttons. Here you can see. But we want all these buttons to merge with each other. We want no space. For this, we have to use the class of btn group. So let's go back to our editor to do this. It's our editor, so simple. We have to use the div element, and inside the div element we use class of button group. And close the div here. Let's save this. Let's view this in our browser. So it's our browser, and when we reload the page, if you notice there is no space between all these buttons. Now these buttons are merged with each other and in form of a group. So that's what we want. So here is the required HTML for achieving that. Now let's create button toolbar. Now we want this layout to be displayed. So notice we want 3 button groups. First button group consists of 2 buttons, second button group also consists of 2 buttons, and the third is also consists of 2 buttons. So let's go to our editor. So it's our editor. Now we want first 2 buttons in a single button group. So here I'm going to use the class of div. So here we have 2 buttons in one button group. As you see here, there are 2 buttons inside one button group. Here I'm doing the same. 2 buttons are in one button group, and the next 2 buttons are in the other button group. And let's close this div here, and the next 2 buttons are in next button group. And the div is closing here. Let's save this, and now we achieve first 2 buttons in single btn group, the next 2 buttons in another btn group, and these 2 buttons are in single btn group. So now we apply button toolbar class on this. So here I'm going to create div element and class of btn toolbar, and end this at the bottom before the row close. So here I'm going to end this. So let's save this and view this in our browser. It's our browser, and when we reload the page, here you see we have achieved this layout. So the HTML, CSS, these are 2 buttons in a button group, and these 2 buttons and these 2 buttons. So here is the required HTML for that. Now let's create button groups with different sizes which look like this. Now we want to achieve this layout. So these are different button sizes. For creating this, let's go to our editor. Here is our browser, and for creating different sizes, Bootstrap provides us different button group sizes classes, which is btn group LG, btn group small, and btn group extra small. So here I'm going to use the class of btn group and then btn group LG. btn group LG, and I'm going to copy this and paste it to the other button group classes. So it's btn small, and now it's here btn extra small. So let's save this and view this in our browser. And when we reload the page, here you see we have a large button group, a small button group, and extra small button group merging with each other. And here is the required HTML for that. Now let's create vertical button group which look like this. So we want to achieve this layout. So let's go back to our editor. So this is our editor. For creating vertical button group, we simply have to add the class of btn group vertical, and here I'm going to use btn group vertical. I'm going to copy this and paste it to the other classes as well. So let's save this and let's view this in our browser. And when we reload the page, here you can see we have a vertical buttons of large size, small size, and extra small size. For this we only have to use the class of btn group vertical. Here is the required HTML for achieving that layout. Now let's create justified button group using hyperlink elements. It's our browser, and we are going to use button justified class by using anchor element. So this is use button group, and inside the button group we have an anchor element, and within that anchor element we use button classes. So let's view this in our browser. This is our browser, and when we reload the page, here you can see we got these buttons. But when we apply btn justified class, so each button span across the entire width of grid column. So let's do this. So it's our browser, and when we add the class of btn group justified, so let's save this and view this in our browser. So it's our browser, and we apply class of justify on this, and when we reload the page, you can see all the buttons required the entire Bootstrap grid column width, which is 12 columns by default. And here when we reload the page, here you can see all the columns are spanning across the 12 column, which is the default Bootstrap grid column width. You can decrease this width by using grid classes. Now let's create nested button group. We want this layout to be achieved. Here you can see these three buttons, and then we have drop down menu, and in our drop down menu we have other languages, and when we click on this, we want our drop down menu items to be appeared, and when we click back on this, we want our drop down menu to be disappeared. So let's create this. So this is our editor, and here you can see we have 4 anchor elements, which are HTML, CSS, jQuery, and other languages. So here we are doing the example of nested button group, and we want the layout including our drop down and including our drop down. So here I'm going to close the div, then start another div and going to give the class of btn group. So here we have three buttons, HTML, CSS and jQuery, and on other languages button we have to apply the class of drop down. All the procedure of drop down we apply on other languages. Creating this, we have to use the div element and class drop down. So here is, and inside this. So I'm not going to discuss in detail about the drop down. I explained about drop down in my previous video tutorial, so you can learn from here. So here I'm going to use the class of drop down toggle. Now the attribute of data toggle drop down. So here I'm going to use the span element. I'm going to use the class of caret. So let's save this and view in our browser how it looked like. So it's our browser, and when we reload the page, here you see it's our HTML, CSS, jQuery button, and it's our other languages, but it's not still working because we didn't apply our drop down menu items to that. So let's go back to our editor and apply drop down menu items. So it's our editor, and now I'm going to use drop down menu items. Drop down menu, and inside this I'm going to use list item, anchor element, ref, and the other languages are JavaScript, and all the three languages are JavaScript. Let's save this and view this in our browser. It's our browser, and when we reload the page, you see nothing happened. But when we click on our drop down, which is other languages, you can see the drop down menu items appeared. Here you can see this is our JavaScript, and all the three languages are JavaScript. And when we click back on this, you can see our menu items will be disappeared. So this is the example of nested btn group, and here is the required HTML for that. So in our next video tutorial, we will learn about Bootstrap split button drop down. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. Have a good day.